forbidden now from making a public interest defense if you're charged with, under the Espionage Act, which are the charges they brought against me. Every country in the world actually recognizes the Espionage Act as what's called a political crime, which means it's not extraditable, and that it's not considered actually a legitimate charge. And that's because the crime that they're saying, the victim is not an individual. Like assassination is not actually considered a political crime because the victim is a person, it's an individual, someone who can be harmed. A political crime is what they call an act that's taken against an actual state, not individuals, but the state itself, not a nation, but the institutions of state. When you're challenging policies, when you're challenging laws. And normally, whenever these cases happen, you're allowed to address the jury. You're allowed to say, you know, we may disagree, and you may find me guilty. You may say, you know, I am a criminal, I deserve to go to prison, but you'll allow me to make my case. It's critical to remember that there were no whistleblower protections that would cover me as a private contractor. There were no proper channels through which I could have reported these concerns to individual independent actors who could review it and change these. All of the channels led to the officials who actually authorized these programs in secret, without public consent and without public knowledge. And that's a really serious concern because when we think about the way government works in America, the way democracy works in America, and more broadly, liberal societies function around the world, they function on the principle of the consent of the governed. And, you know, consent is not meaningful if it's not informed. If officials are making decisions for us, behind closed doors, they're authorizing operations on the decisions of secret courts, where the judges on those courts are all appointed by a single individual, at this time, Justice John Roberts. And they all say, you know, this is okay, this is okay, this is okay. But the minute these issues hit the newspaper, we see something completely different. The president himself comes out on stage and says, you know what, these conversations have made us stronger. All of the review boards that are instituted find that these programs are not only dangerous to our civil liberties, to the rights that we've inherited into our Constitution as a document, but that they're also not necessary, that they've never stopped even a single terrorist attack.
But you basically felt the American system didn't really offer a possibility at this point for speaking out and having a fair trial and being able to put this argument across, I guess. And
well, the key there is that that decision wasn't actually made by me personally, that was made by lawyers. I've told the government again and again in negotiations, you know, that if they're prepared to offer an open trial, a fair trial, in the same way that Dan Ellsberg got, and I'm allowed to make my case to the jury, I would love to do so.
Oh, really?
But
they won't assure you that you'd have an open trial. It would be in some kind of, I know in the Drake trial.
They want to use special procedures, basically. They want to close court. They want to use things called like Classified Information Protection Act.
Right, and then they use like sound machines to silence the person so the jury couldn't, the public couldn't hear what he was talking about at that point. So is that what you were afraid that there would be some kind of screening out of what your arguments would be?
Right, we saw this in the Thomas Drake case. This was a classic whistleblower. You actually wrote an article about him, I believe, so you should be fairly familiar with the case. And he exposed classic waste, fraud, and abuse. You know, these were classic, basically inarguable public interest issues. But they tried to railroad him. You know, they limited the arguments he could make, they limited the evidence that he could present, and they tried to put him in jail without anybody knowing it, without it being able to be